My name is Alicia Downs. I am a first-year student at the MSW program of the University of Southern California.
All right. So what is your personal experience with military-dependent students?
Well, I'm working at Oceanside High School currently, and as an intern there, I'm working definitely to help the students focus and perform at their optimal ability in the school environment. I'm also living on Camp Pendleton. I'm a veteran myself. I'm married to active duty, and I have two children that are also in military schools. So I'm definitely surrounded by the military in everything that I do, and it makes it that much more personal. So I just put my all into it every time I have a student in front of me.
How has the organization you're affiliated with addressed the needs of military dependents?
Well, in Oceanside High School, part of the Oceanside Unified School District, I think they've done as best they can given their knowledge of the military population and the military culture. There is room for improvement, as there is with any organization. I think one of the best ways to facilitate and to assist these students is to, number one, know who they are. And that's hard to do when you have one teacher in a classroom of 30 to 40 students. It's really easy for a child to just be a name on a page and never a face and never a person. And that's part of what we've come into with just the budget situation here in California. We have our staff, our teachers and faculties are definitely overtasked, so our children are kind of missing out on that personal connection, and that's especially important to a military child because given that we're going on 10 years since 2001, since the attacks of 9/11, we have a lot of children that are growing up almost with an absent parent. Besides the normal deployments of military life, you've got a deployment every 6 to 12 months. So when you have somebody who has a constant absence or a constant state of flux, the more stability you can provide them, you can not only facilitate the resiliency in the child and encourage it, but you also kind of create a safe environment. And if they're feeling safe and welcome and involved and attached to someone at school, that can make all the difference.
One of the, I've said this a couple times, one of the other interviewees said that keeping the constant for a military child is keeping the school as the constant. And I think what you just said was pretty accurate to that too, that, to have that stable kind of support somewhere.
Right. The research has shown that you don't necessarily have to have two parents in the home to have a healthy child. What you need is stable relationships to support the child. That is no different in the case of the military child. They don't necessarily want to be singled out, say, oh, I'm military, I'm special. These are all the excuses as to why I can fall short and not perform. Instead, these children, much like their parents, have that attitude of independence, a very American value of independence and self-reliance. So it's hard for them to even say, you know what, I'm having a hard time. My mom is gone, my dad is gone. In some cases, both parents are gone. And they're living with a relative, maybe a grandparent. And it's a great effort on that person's part, but it's still not quite the same. And if you can foster a more supportive environment, then to do that really isn't that hard. Somebody just has to let that child know that they care.
Yeah. Are you familiar with any initiatives or special programs that are targeted for military dependents?
Well, I know somewhat about the Interstate Compact, where they're trying to create some kind of agreement between the states specifically for military children. So as they transfer from school to school, they have somewhat of a consistency in the requirements. From my own personal experience, we moved to Georgia from California, where my children were able to start school at 4 years old because their birthdays were in November. However, when I went to Georgia and tried to enroll them in public school, I was told they'd be demoted a year because of when they were born, given that Georgia's cutoff is in August, in which case I chose to homeschool because there's no reason why a child should be judged on their birthday or the circumstances and not the individual's ability. And even though I argued to have them assessed, the funding wouldn't really allow for it. So it was unfortunate, but in the meantime, they were able to continue through the homeschool system and were able to continue on the same track. So now they're in the grades they would be in. However, at the same time, if I felt that they weren't performing at a grade level, then I have the option of saying, hey, you know what, she either needs some more help or she may even need to be retained. With the Interstate Compact, that would help create a consistency for a child who's in a constant state of flux. You know, my children say all the time, oh, we're going to move. Yes, because at some point we're going to move. We may not move tomorrow, we may not move for 6 months, but we're going to move. And in anticipation of that, it only makes sense that we would provide these students with all the assets and resources we can to create not only a healthy learning environment, but the best learning environment possible. And another initiative that's going to be on the table soon is what we call No Child Left Behind. And in that, there are lots of initiatives to improve the performance of each individual student, but is it considering the circumstances that are affecting these students? It's set the bar high, and that's great, but has it really examined how we get over that bar? And it seems that not everybody's making it over that bar.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess, on a similar topic, how do you think the public education has responded to the needs of military dependents in children?
I can only speak of my experience with California and Georgia. I've been stationed in the two states back and forth over the 13 years I've been affiliated with the military. In California, here in Oceanside, I've seen on their district website that they've made efforts to incorporate some support systems. There's online tutoring. There are some online programs, but there's nothing that I've seen that's really personal. There's no one on the ground with these students helping them transition from, okay, I lived in Camp Lejeune where I had a class of maybe 20 students and everybody moved a little bit slower, to it's 95 degrees in November and my dad's gone. So there's no real consistency, and when you're constantly shaking everything, something's going to break.
Yeah.
So
What do you think, or, is there a difference between day schools and off-base schools, whether it be public or private? Do you think there's a difference between those two?
I think there is a difference. On Camp Pendleton, our schools, we have several schools, and they're all operated by the local school districts. They are not DOD schools. That's one misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
At one point they were, but they've been transitioned to the local school districts. My research and my own personal research, I haven't discovered as exactly why that is, but that's the case as it stands. So what I've noticed on base, where I've had 2 children attend school, there's definitely a lot of consistent involvement among the parents in the families. The schools are situated within the housing communities, and that's how you earn your spot at those schools. You actually have to live on the base to be able to enroll in that school. While off base, where my oldest daughter goes and where I'm actually interning, what I see is it's like there was a support net on base and the bottom's been cut out. I have several students on my own personal caseload that are living on base or definitely directly affiliated with the military that are failing at least 2 classes. They offer tutoring on campus, but at the same time, we're having to pay $200 for our students to get from on base to the one school that they can go to. They're very limited in their options once you get past elementary school levels, which is all we have on Camp Pendleton. There's just a difference in the support. You definitely have on base more of a community feeling, a definite sense of security that isn't really there when you're off base, and that itself is a huge transition for these children.
Yeah. And the last question,
Mm-hmm.
What do you hope and other interns hope to get out of this workshop today?
I hope this workshop will help me add tools to my toolbox. That's what it's really all about. If I can learn something today or in the next day or two that will help me better serve not just the military child, but any child. That's my position right now, and that's my priority. I bring to the table my own experience, just like everyone else who's sitting at my table. They've all got their own tools, and together we've created a good arsenal to address the situation. So it's really just to learn something. I have no specific goals other than to grow in my experience.